Hey everybody, this video is going to cover a topic that I think is always important for students in writing courses, particularly in high school and at the college level. It's about source credibility. The internet is a wonderful and amazing resource. However, it's given us access to a lot of information, but that isn't always necessarily credible and reliable. So when you are looking for sources, there are a series of questions that you need to ask yourself about your source, about the author of the source, the host of the information, in order to determine if it is something that you can use for an essay in college, for example. I'm focusing primarily on what I would allow in my English 111 course. Now, as a high school teacher, I would expect these same sort of things from my high school students as well. So when you are looking at websites, you went to Google, you are learning about a subject, it's really great to spend an hour or maybe two researching whatever your topic is for your essay just on Google. So search for your topic, read and read and read everything that you can so that you have learned about the topic that you are writing about. However, when it is time to begin collecting sources for use in an academic essay, so this is not for your own personal education, this is for use in an academic essay, those sources need to be vetted. That means that you need to look at who's producing them, where they're coming from, to determine if they should be considered credible for use in college, because they need to meet more stringent standards than just what we would use for personal education. So this is the credibility checklist that I use with my students that I'm going to kind of go over here. First thing that you want to look at is the type of source. For example, is this in a peer-reviewed journal? If the answer is yes, you can stop. That means that somebody else, a group of peers in that field, has already vetted this article for you. You don't have to do any more work. Peer-reviewed articles are done. Those are considered credible and reliable because they have already been vetted by other professionals. If that's the case, you're done. If that's not, you would put an X in the ding nope side. That's what I use this for. This is a checklist. So you're answering either yes or no to these questions. The next one down, is this in a journal, even if it's not peer-reviewed, or is it in a trade journal? So some journals are still good, but they're not necessarily peer-reviewed journals. So if that is yes, this is in a journal or a trade journal, then you could put a check mark in that column. If it is not, you would put a check in the no. Is it a book? Books are published. Generally, they go through a more rigorous process before publication. So if it is a book, then you can check yes, and if it's not, check no. Is this source in a magazine or newspaper? If the answer is that it is not, you put a no or a yes here. You have to basically go on and answer the rest of the questions to determine credibility from there. This is my issue with ProQuest. So it will pull articles that were published in any print publication. So you might get some that were printed in what I would call questionable print publications. So just because it was printed in a newspaper does not mean that it was factual. You need to look at the actual newspaper to determine whether or not you should trust the information from that newspaper. We think about this more when we are looking at online news sites. If something comes from CNN or if it comes from Fox News, you have to understand that those are considered biased sources and they are not good for use in an academic essay. Is it from an open online source? That if it is, then you need to continue on with this checklist to determine whether or not it meets standards for credibility. Once you've looked at where the information is coming from, the next thing you need to look at is the who. Who is the author? Who is publishing this information? If a source does not give you an author, that's something to automatically look twice at. Now, if you've got a corporate author, such as the Mayo Clinic or the CDC, then you can jump down to corporate author. But if it's just no author listed at all, that's kind of suspect. But if you have an author, let's look at the author. Sometimes you will have to Google stalk these people a little bit. You may have to put their names into Google. You may have to look them up on LinkedIn. You may want to look at where they work. What is it that these people do? So my first question is, does the author hold an advanced degree? That would be a master's or doctorate in this field. It's got to be in the field. Holding a bachelor's degree does not qualify you to write on a subject. It does not make you a subject expert. If you hold an advanced degree, for example, a master's degree or a PhD in a subject, that means that you are more of a subject expert. However, it still has to be in the field of study. So, for example, I have a master's in English, but my master's in English does not qualify me to write about sociology, psychology, law, public policy, science, or anything else like that. I could write about English. That's it. That's what I'm doing here. But my master's degree in English would disqualify me from writing about teens and sleep. Okay, I'm not qualified for that. So if you are looking at this author and they hold an advanced degree in the field of your article, then you would put yes. If they do not, then you would put no. Next question, does the author teach in this field at a university or have they in the past? So for example, I've taught English at a university, so you could Google stalk me, find that out. I'm on LinkedIn and social media and all that stuff. You would hit yes. If, however, I'm trying to write an article about science, but I've never taught science, I would get a no. You would check no on there. I have not taught in science at a university level. But if your author has taught in this field at a university, then you would check yes here. Does the author publish books or articles in peer-reviewed journals in this field? So you're looking at what else has this author produced. Have the other things that this author has produced, have they been well received? Have they been published in other locations? Is this person generally considered an expert in this field? And then finally for author, does the author actively work in this field? This is somebody who is a subject matter expert based on their work experience. We see that often with doctors who are writing about things. Corporate authors. So this is maybe you don't have an author, or you have an author that you can't find as much out about, but they are through Johns Hopkins, CDC, a corporation of some kind. So these are the questions for that. Is it a government website? We would like to trust our government. So you can hit yes on that. That would make it a credible source, we hope. Is it a university website? .edu, those websites should be vetted, ideally. Now again, that doesn't mean it's a blanket that it would cover everything, because EDUs will still cover blogs sometimes, and an EDU blog does not count as a credible source. But you can put yes there. Check no in the no box if this group needs money. If they are trying to get donations, or if they take donations, or if they are actively recruiting or advocating or anything like that, if they want money or volunteer time, then put a ding in the no column, because they're probably not reliable. The information that they give you is going to be slanted towards getting what they want. That makes them less reliable. Check no on the no column if this is a blog from a company. Blogs are written by everyday average people for the most part. Not always. You could vet an author from the author section, but a lot of times blogs are posted by just workers. So that would be a no. Is the company working in the field, and is this a national organization in this field? Those kinds of things may bolster a source's credibility. The downside to that is the money part. So if they are a national organization, but they're really working for money, that's going to ding their credibility. Hosts and publishers. So is the host or the publisher a government entity or university? If it is, then you would check yes. If it is not, then you would check no. Is the host or publisher working in this field? If the host or publisher needs money, they get a ding in the no column. When you go to the host or publisher, if you go to Advantis Media or the media bias chart, Is this host or publisher rated as unbiased and factual? And if you don't know what those are, you just go to Google and type in Adventist Media or Media Bias Chart and your host or publisher. And if they are in the middle of their chart, you'll see a big chart. If the host or publisher falls right there in the middle under unbiased and factual, then that would be considered a good source and you would hit yes. If they are somewhere left, right, top, bottom, then you would hit no. If the host or publisher is a journal, is it peer reviewed? If you manage to miss the peer reviewed at the top, I'm asking you one more time here. Then in terms of sources of the information, when you are finding credible sources, those people need to document where they got their information from. If they are not providing their sources of information to you, that is suspect because you don't know where they got that info. They could have just randomly pulled it off of Wikipedia. No. The author should cite their sources either in a references list, a bibliography list, a sources page, works cited. Is there some kind of section or area where they are documenting where they got their information? I mean, even Wikipedia documents where they got their information. If they are not doing that, if they are not showing you where they got their information, that is a ding. That is an O, because you cannot verify their information. The other thing is, if an article online gives you little links that's supposed to be like where they got their information and it looks like a citation, you need to go and open up all of those links. You need to check what those links are to. Is it just opening another article by the same company or another article by the same author? If their sources of information would not meet these credible standards, then that's a hot nope. The sources that they give you need to meet these credibility standards as well. If they're just citing random stuff, then that does not make them very credible. Same thing here. If the author provides links to those sources, you do need to open up those links to make sure that those sources are credible and reliable. If they are not, then this author gets no credit for that. That's why it's important to cite good sources. Can the information in this source that you are looking at be fact-checked with other credible sources? So if this is the only website, the only article, the only published whatever that is making this particular claim, and you can't verify that anywhere else, that is suspect information. Okay? Your source should be able to be fact-checked using other websites, other articles, other authors. If it cannot be fact-checked, it is suspect, and you should check no in this checklist. Finally, in the sources of information, does the author explain the methodology and results before drawing conclusions? If this is a study, if they're talking about research, do they explain how they did their research? Because if they don't, it comes across as like they are trying to hide something. They're trying to hide what they did or how they did it to reach these particular conclusions. So making sure that they're explaining methodologies and results of their studies before they give you their conclusions, that is important in terms of credibility. And then finally, was this information published in the last 10 years? And really, it ought to be more like 5. Information is so readily available and accessible and changing with discoveries and research. I know that a lot of schools, a lot of instructors, 10 years is the currency. But ideally, you want to look for stuff in the last 5 years. But if it is older than 10 years, this is probably no longer valuable data. The only exception to that would be is if you are looking at a topic over time, then the information from past time periods would be relevant. For example, my students do a project on homelessness, and they do often bring in sources from the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. That is all fine. If they are providing those years as context in the essays. Otherwise, if it's just for something, for example, on teens and sleep, it needs to be minimum in the last 10 years, preferably in the last 5. So once you have checked yes and no for all of these, then you come down at the bottom and total up the number in each column. If the no's are outweighing the yeses, I would not suggest using that particular source in an academic essay. The yeses need to be higher than the no's for this particular for use in an academic essay. If you are in high school, again, this is subject to what your instructor is talking or your high school teacher wants. If you are at the college level, of course, you want to pay attention to what your particular instructor gives you in terms of criteria. But this is just a broad general overview of how to choose a credible source for an academic essay. I hope this helps, and I will look forward to seeing you in other videos. Have a great day.